So that's a great segue to this helmet and racing cars. So while you were a child actor, you were also racing cars?
Yeah, so I bought a cheap race car as a hobby just to kind of break out of the LA mindset.
With that actor money?
It really was cheap, I promise.
Okay.
I think and especially when I explain it doesn't sound cheap. Like I built a Porsche race car. You're like, that does not sound cheap at all. But I think it cost me like $13,000.
Okay.
So for a race car, that's like super, super cheap.
Okay.
And I just did it to get out of the mindset of LA. My neighbor, who's a director, had a race car, and I was like, that looks like the coolest thing ever. Can I rent it from you? And he was like, absolutely not.
Right.
No.
Okay.
But you can contact the shop that built mine, and maybe they can figure something out for you. So I just did it the old-fashioned way and started going to the track, and total just thrown in the deep end, old school style. No one taught me how to do any of it. It was just, here's the track, here's the green flag, figure it out.
And are you doing, okay, so my experience with racing is limited. I went to an F1 race with Steve once. And then as a kid, I grew up in kind of like a small area of Texas where they would have like, it was like drag racing, like you go straight. And then, but like, were you going in a circle?
No, so like Formula One tracks, but with cars that have roofs. So like GT cars, like sports cars, but on Formula One style tracks.
Oh, I think we went to that. Excuse me. I think we went to a race like that. Because Steve's old company, and we'll get into like what we do in entrepreneurship, because you're obviously an entrepreneur in everything that you do, a creator. But we went, and it was like Mustangs and Porsches, and like, and they were going around that. It was so cool.
Yeah,
it's
so
like
that kind of racing,
really cool. What is that called?
Sports car racing.
Just straight up sports car racing.
There's a lot of different leagues like IMSA or SRO or NASA, different NASA. I promise, not the space race.
They're not
one.
racing on the moon. Yeah. How cool would that be? Like NASA on the moon, like NASCAR on the moon.
I think Cars 4 might have a good chance of going to the moon.
Okay,
that would probably be pretty good.
Love that.
But yeah, I ended up being really good at racing and kind of went through the whole club racing ladder and ran out of people to race and had all the track records. And I was like, I'm the best fucking thing that's ever touched a steering wheel.
I love it.
So then
I was like, this is hard.
I was like, I need to go pro just for competition.
Okay.
So I decided to go pro and got a little humbled, of course.
Okay.
Very first lap of my pro career, totaled the car. Like
totaled it?
Oh, like 540 in the air, 3 ambulance rides, the whole deal.
What?
Totaled the car. And that was humbling because I'd never had an accident before that. So I was definitely like jumping straight in the deep end again.
So you had an accident going like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's the worst way. I mean, after that, it's all easy, right?
It's like, all uphill.
It's all uphill. You just get it out of the way. That's perfect.
But my first season went pretty well. I did have a win in my first season, which I feel like is pretty dang good, and several podiums, and a pretty heartbreaking end of the season. I wasn't going to win, but second place was going to get basically a free season.
Okay.
And I was like locked into second place. All I had to do was like not get last. And I got crashed 3 times in the same race by the same guy and got last.
I feel like there's collusion involved.
I was such an upset gentleman that day. Yeah.
Did he come shake your hand?
In fact, when he
after?
was like parking back in the paddock, I just hit his car straight into a porta potty and then backed in and took his parking spot and then got fined severely for doing that.
Worth it.
Could have hurt someone in the paddock. I understand why, but
how old were you when this happened?
Let's see, that was 2013, so I was 22.
That's a perfect 22-year-old response.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely appropriate.
Yeah.
I condone it.
And then I fell into a pretty deep depression for the first time ever because I'd never not succeeded at what I wanted to do.
Okay.
It was really weird. Like, as far as I knew, like, hard work, perseverance, and just fucking luck. Just send it,
Every time.
Just as long as you fully commit, why not?
Yeah.
And I fell into this deep, dark depression. Actually, like, threw my back out from stress, gained a bunch of weight, and finally my parents actually came and bailed me out. They're like, we can't have you like this anymore. Like,
oh, so it was like your parents were like, hey, we need to intervene here.
Yeah.
Like there's something.
So they ended up paying for me to race my second season, which was huge.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm sure, and we'll get to poker in a second, but like there's a lot of like sponsorships and it's very expensive to do that and go like, what does it cost to race for a season?
When I was first starting, it was actually pretty reasonable. I say reasonable, but if you don't know racing, it's going to sound incredibly unreasonable. But it was about $65,000 to $75,000 for a season.
Wow.
Compared to 2024, the same exact class, it's about $325,000.
Wow, that's why all those brands are all over those cars.
Yeah, and it's not sponsorship's really not as simple as like just slapping a sticker on a car anymore.
Oh, of course.
It's no longer just like click for views type of thing. It's really all business to business sponsorships and partnerships. And like if you've ever seen an IndyCar race, there's a Target IndyCar.
Mm-hmm.
So that money actually came from Charmin paying Target for shelf space for toilet paper.
Interesting.
But then Target not wanting to just like advertise a toilet paper car. So Charmin was like, we'll pay for a Target sponsored car in exchange for shelf space. Win-win. More people go to Target, more people see our toilet paper, win-win. And it's like, that's so confusing.
Yeah. No, well,
or like I raced in the Playboy MX5 Cup.
Okay.
It actually wasn't Playboy who was paying for that. It was Cialis. But Mazda wasn't going to allow the Cialis MX5 Cup.
Yeah, of course.
But their number one advertising spot was in Playboy magazine. So
Sure.
Mazda allowed the Playboy MX5 Cup.
Good for all you guys. That's fun.
The weirdest business-to-business deal. But hey, we had Playmates on the podium. So
who's mad at that?
Stoked, yeah.
No one's mad at that. That's amazing. I think that it makes sense, right? And especially in this like very digital world that we're in, it's all online. Like toilet paper's not sexy.
No.
Cialis frankly isn't sexy, right? I mean, the beginning part of it, but Target, people love Target. Target's sexy. Playboy's sexy.
Right.
Like it makes sense, but it is like an interesting, I think with any industry, I don't know much about marketing, but just like how the marketing has changed where it's like, hey, we're going to sell Cialis by pumping up Playboy.
Right.
I mean, it's it's a little not ABC, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's a bit run around, but whatever they got to do.
Yeah, and the Charmin, logo, those bears, like that'd be the dumbest looking car with those like bears with the toilet paper. You're like,
have the driver get out, and be like, I only wiped my ass with Charmin this week. You're like,
yeah,
that's not gonna sell well.
Yeah, no, that's not gonna sell toilet paper. Yeah. But everybody goes to Target, so that's really cool. And $325,000 for how long is a season?
Seasons typically, depending on which series, they run from January to November, but most seasons are like late March to early October.
Okay.
So most seasons actually just ended this last Sunday.
That's a long time. That's
so
6 months.
Off season for practicing, testing, etc. is actually really short because it's through the holidays.
Right.
You got to try to get as much done as possible. You got to try to get your sponsor lined up immediately. And then if you're racing big boy cars like I was, like the 24-hour of Daytona is the last week of January. And the official test for that, which is mandatory to race in that, is 2 weeks prior to that. So it's like January 9th.
Yeah, so you have like...
You really have like Thanksgiving, Christmas, that's it.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
So how do you go about finding sponsorships?
Throughout the years, I've had some weird, wild sponsorships for sure. There's actually one on here, this little logo right here. It's a YouTube channel called NARPM. It's a buddy of mine who owns it. He makes like dumb gym bro workout videos as like a parody.
Okay.
But he had this line of pre-workout and I was getting like super in shape. So he like sent me like cases of this pre-workout and then ended up paying for this huge after party if I were to win any races in exchange for that little helmet sticker there. So
that's a nice exchange.
It's all weird business to business deals.
That's very cool.
So they ended up, my parents, sorry to get back to...
Oh, yeah.
My parents put up the money for a second season MX5 Cup, the Mazda Speed Pro Challenge, which was about $65,000, which is a huge investment for parents, obviously. But they just saw me rotting on a couch for 4 months,
right,
getting fat and depressed, and now I'm of drinking age, so I was probably just partying, not giving a flying fuck.
Yeah.
And that season was just, I was on fire. Nothing could stop me. It was like once they told me that they were going to put me back in a car, it was just like the lights turned on and everything went right. And I think I won 10 out of 14 races that year.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, it was pretty unstoppable. And then with the championship, I won like a $250,000 scholarship for the next season to go up a class.
So you're like constantly working your way
it's like
up.
a ladder system.
Okay.
So I became a Mazda factory driver, and then I needed to lose a lot of weight because I'd been partying all year now, and I was probably like 220 pounds.
Is there this is a really dumb question, but is it kind of like a job? Like you have to be a certain size? Like those cars are small. I'm assuming.
It's not a dumb question at all. They do trophy weight the cars to like 180-pound driver weight normally. So like if you're a 120-pound kid, they're going to put 60 pounds of weight in your car.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But if you're over 180 pounds, well, you're shit out of luck.
Oh, right.
So it's just a negative penalty on you, basically. And every 10 pounds is 1/10 of a second a lap.
Oof.
So it's a lot.
Because it comes down to like
thousands.
Yeah. So like it's a lot that it got you. So
actually, in that year that I won the championship, I won a race by 6 1/1000ths of a second. So yeah, it like really matters. That's like,
so 1/10 of a second.
That's like
lot.
2 French fries. Like it does matter a lot.
Wow.
So
crazy.
When I became a Mazda factory driver, I just like turned on this new discipline, and I lost 50 pounds in 54 days.
Whoa.
I was working out 6.5 hours a day, like 3 chicken breasts, a gallon of green juice a day. That was it.
Do you recommend that diet?
Not at all. It was terrible. Especially because I was like still intermittently partying like once a week. Green juice vodka, not the best mixer. I'm not going to lie.
I would imagine.
But we showed up to the first race, and I'd been training like really, really heavily. And everyone was like, he's just coming up from the lower class. He's probably not going to do that great. I won the first race by 6.5 seconds.
Which is like a lot. That's like a minute.
It was the biggest margin of victory in the MX5 Cup history at the time.
Wow.
So it was like, what the fuck? Even the team owner who agreed to sign with me who was also racing, who got second, was like, what the fuck?
Which is, because you're talking about like thousandths of seconds.
Right.
6 seconds is like
massive.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Like a whole car. Like length,
a lot
right?
of cars. Yeah. Like 100 car lengths. Yeah.
Wow. What do you?
I mean, that's like like it was a long time.
That's amazing. You're like, what? This is like hard. Like, what's wrong with you guys?
And I had a great season that season, and I led the championship all the way until the very last race, and something happened, and then I got to race for free basically off prize money because I was making fairly good money from Mazda at that time, and racing was still cheap-ish at that time, so I could parlay it into another season basically. And then same thing, led the championship, for at least more than half the season. Something happened. That happened like 4 more times, and it's just one of those things of like, well, shit, shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Yeah.